Okay, and I think we are now live, so welcome everyone. For those new here, my name's Nikki, I'm an author and editor, and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading, and all the things I love, and it's the latter we're here for today because it's the end of the month, so I'm going to do a little bit of a wrap-up of what I've been watching in terms of TV and film. So let me get rid of this banner so it's no longer chopping off my chin, and there we go. So it's been, in some ways, a quiet month. I've been watching still more Korean series, so they take up a fair bit of time. I've also been really, really busy with work, so I've only got a few things to mention today. First of all, I did watch one film during the Korean Film Festival in Australia, and this was unfortunately an event that was cut short. It was supposed to run for several more days than it did. I think it cut off about halfway through, which was a shame, as there was a couple of things I'd been hoping to watch, but they had some kind of security issues, not with people's data, but I would imagine from what was going on with people downloading the films or something like that. So they had to end it. They've promised to come back bigger next year. So I only got to see one in the end, which was Fukuoka, if I can say it. Fukuoka, which is a story about two guys who in high school were good friends until they fell in love with the same girl, which caused them to split apart. And they're now in middle age, and one of them is approached by this young school-age girl, and she wants him to go with her to Fukuoka in Japan. And it turns out when they get there that this is where this friend of his is now living. So they end up reconnecting and talking through what happened in the past. Essentially, it is a relationship character-driven story. It was perhaps a little slow here and there. However, I think it had some really interesting themes that it explored, and I did really enjoy the development between these characters as they traversed the city together in this sort of new and slightly awkward threesome. So it was definitely worth watching. And as I said, it's just a shame I couldn't see the one or two others I'd been looking forward to, but maybe I'll have an opportunity in the future. Moving on, we go to Netflix for the rest of my viewing for November. So first of all, I watched a movie, which was the new adaptation of Rebecca. Now, I'm a huge fan of Rebecca. I love the book. I love the original movie with Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine. And I love the musical. I've seen it on stage. It's a really favourite story of mine. And I approached this with some trepidation because I thought, oh, wow, a new version of Rebecca, how awesome. But at the same time, you're always a little bit worried about what they're going to do. And in some ways, that was a fear that was realised in this movie. So starting off with the good things, I thought the casting was great. I mean, Armie Hammer, wonderful actor. Lily did a great job too as the title character, the narrator character. And Kristen Scott Thomas as Mrs. Danvers, fine. So no problem with the casting. And it started off quite well and seemed to be fairly close. I mean, they kind of played around and made it a bit sexier, I guess you could say. But, you know, I've no issue with that. But then suddenly they started changing the story about halfway through, which I really hated because it completely changed the emphasis, completely altered the characters and the way things played out in the latter part of the story. And I just didn't understand why. I mean, I guess they wanted the narrator to have a bit more agency, I guess. She is kind of passive in the original. But they suddenly had her doing all this stuff that then felt really out of character based on what we've seen of her and what we know of her from the book. So I don't want to say too much more and ruin it in case you're going to watch it. If you're an absolute stalwart Rebecca fan, you may find, like me, that you're a little bit put off by the stuff that they play around with. But if you don't know the story that well and you're coming to it for the first time, then I'm sure you'd find something to enjoy in this. It's nicely filmed, the cinematography is good, the acting's good. As I said, it's just this fiddling with the story that I didn't like. So moving on, we've just got 4 Korean TV series that I watched during November as well. So the first of these was Possessed. This is a Netflix made series, and the premise is there's a young woman who has supernatural powers. She can see ghosts, and she ends up teaming up with this cop who eventually develops the ability to see ghosts too, and they're pursuing a serial killer who is actually, it turns out, a serial killer from the past whose spirit has come back and possessed, as the title says, the body of someone else and is returning to his old ways. So this was mostly good. It had a few pacing issues here and there, whereas so many Netflix series do. But overall, I liked it. I felt they kind of played up certain aspects a little bit too much with this sort of end of the world theory that then never really eventuated into anything much. And it wasn't the happiest of endings, I'll say, without spoiling it any further. But it was enjoyable enough. It's just not one I'd highly recommend at the top of my list. But if you like supernatural and serial killers, then I'm sure you'd enjoy it. So moving on, the next one I watched was a contemporary romantic comedy called What's Wrong with Secretary Kim. And this one was quite fun. It's a premise we've seen before, a bit tropey, of the secretary who's an absolute star at everything she does, and the guy takes her for granted, but then suddenly she hands in her notice. And so in handing in her notice, he discovers that he actually has feelings for her, and he's trying to get her to stay. So this one started off really strongly, and I was really enjoying it. I thought the character interaction was great. It was funny and quirky, and just good entertainment. It lost me a little bit later on once the couple had got together, because they got together probably about the midway through the series, and they still had some hurdles to overcome and such before the end. But I kind of felt like the big thrust of the drama and what you were waiting for, the excitement, was over a little bit too early. But it was still great fun. Again, it's not one I'd rush to rewatch again and again, but it was one I'm glad I saw, and it was a good laugh and entertaining. So that leaves us with the two that I enjoyed most this month. First of all was Legend of the Blue Sea. And this is a historical / contemporary fantasy drama. It takes place we see two timelines going on, because the two main characters had previously been together in a past life. So we see that playing out. And then we also move to the action in the contemporary scene where they're meeting again in their sort of new incarnations. And the main female character happens to be a mermaid, which causes plenty of fun. I mean, if you've seen the old 80s movie Splash, where she can't get wet because it reveals she's a mermaid, there's all that sort of stuff going on in this one too. I liked the Korean take on mermaids, some of the folklore surrounding that, and the historical part was set in the Chosun era, which I love anyway. And this was really good. It was a sweet story. It was humorous, funny, but had me crying a few times as well. And definitely, if you like mermaids, if you like supernatural stories, fantasy stories, and if you like those kind of competing timeline kind of shows as well, then this is one I definitely would recommend. And finally, the last one I watched that I just finished actually 2 days ago is, I've got to remember the title. Oh my goodness, Hyde Jekyll Me. So this is one that I almost glossed over, and I kind of read the sort of blurb, the spiel about it, and I was kind of like, I don't know, it could be good, could be bad, but I actually ended up really enjoying it. And it's, as I said, it's called Hyde Jekyll Me, and it's about a chaebol heir who has a split personality. So his main normal personality, interestingly enough, is the Hyde one. He's a bit of a grumpy guy who, straight-faced, just wants to get on with his job, doesn't care about anyone else, he's only out looking after himself. And his alternate personality is this sweet guy who's a webtoon artist. He goes around saving people, cares about others, and he's just fun and everything opposite to Sojun, the main guy. And in between them comes this woman who is the leader of the circus troupe at the theme park that our main guy runs. And he's trying to evict the circus, and she's fighting against him. But at the same time, she ends up meeting his other personality, Robin, and she falls in love with him. So there's the tension between the two personalities over this girl. And then there's also his cousin who's trying to steal his job and is out for any kind of gossip or anything that will bring him down. So there's a lot of different things going on, conflict with his father over the fact he has this second personality and things like that as well. It was really entertaining. Again, it's one of those shows that had humour and you were laughing 1 minute, but then the next minute was really sad. I liked the way it concluded. I think that worked really well. And great performances, particularly from the main guy, who was doing essentially two performances as these two different characters. So definitely one I would recommend. And it's one I feel I could probably watch again and still enjoy. So that's all for now. I've got to pick what series I'm going to start next. I am watching Full Metal Alchemist anime, which I've made a start on, but it'll probably be into the new year before I finish that, because I'm only watching an odd episode here and there. During December, we do, of course, have the Japanese Film Festival, which is all online and free this year. And I've got about 5 things lined up that I'm hoping to watch for that. So if I get to see at least 3 of them, then I'll be happy with that, just depending on how my time goes, because I'm still quite busy through December as well. But I will end there for now. I'll be back again in 10 minutes or so to do my book wrap up for the month as well. So I do hope you will join me again then. And I will see you for another one of these at the end of December. Bye for now, everyone.